Part 1. The Grave Without a Name. You can still hear the wind whispering through the old pines that line the edge of Everest Cemetery. On most days, it's just that, wind. But on Memorial Day, when the flags are freshly planted and the sun begins to slip behind the hills, the breeze feels different, colder, like something unseen is moving through the air, watching. Sarah Mitchell, a local history teacher, had volunteered, like she did every year, to help place flags on veterans' graves. It was her way of honoring her grandfather, who never came home from Vietnam. But this year, she was assigned a section she had never visited before. Way in the back, past the oldest headstones, where the ground was uneven and the markers leaned with age. That's when she saw it. A headstone, plain and gray. No name, no rank, just the faint carving of a date, 1918. And underneath, as if scratched with a trembling hand, the words, "I was forgotten." She blinked. Surely it had to be a mistake. Maybe the rain had worn the stone down too much. Maybe the inscription wasn't even real. But when she bent closer, the wind stopped. Completely. No birds, no leaves rustling. Even her own breath felt too loud. And then, the cold hit her. Not the kind that brushes across your skin. The kind that sinks into your bones and whispers to your heart that you are very, very alone. She placed the flag gently in front of the stone. "Thank you for your service," she whispered, more out of habit than belief. But the moment the words left her lips, a voice answered, soft, dry, and close. "No one ever thanked me until now." Sarah froze. Her hands trembled. She turned around. No one, not a soul in sight. But the wind was back, and this time it carried a scent. Old smoke, damp wool, and the unmistakable metallic tang of blood. She backed away from the stone, her heart pounding. Every step she took, she felt it. The gaze, something watching, something finally awakened. And just before she reached the edge of the tree line, she glanced back. The flag she had placed was gone. In its place stood a figure, draped in shadow, uniform faded, face obscured, silent, watching her, waiting. Part 2. The Soldier Who Waits. Sarah didn't remember driving home. The whole ride was a blur, trees rushing past, headlights flickering like ghostly eyes, and the overwhelming sense that something followed her, just beyond the reach of her mirrors. Even the radio was silent, static drowning out every station, until one channel crackled with a war-era song We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when. She turned it off. At home, everything felt off. The porch light flickered for the first time in years. The hallway smelled faintly of smoke. Her dog, a cheerful golden retriever, refused to come near the door. It growled low, tail between its legs, eyes fixed on nothing. But Sarah knew better. It was there. Later that night, she lay in bed, unable to sleep. She heard it. Boots. Heavy, deliberate steps across the wooden floor downstairs. One after another. Thud. 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 She held her breath. Maybe it was a burglar. Maybe she was dreaming. But then the footsteps stopped. Right outside her bedroom door. The air turned frigid. Her breath clouded in the darkness. And then, knock, knock, knock. 3 taps, not aggressive, not desperate, just waiting. She didn't move, couldn't. A whisper slipped through the crack beneath the door. Ragged, dry. Why did you leave me? Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. She hadn't left anyone, had she? She squeezed her eyes shut, pulling the covers over her head like a child hiding from the dark. And that's when she heard it. The soft flutter of fabric, the unmistakable sound of a flag being folded. When she dared to peek, the door stood wide open. Nothing there except a small American flag, perfectly folded in a triangle, resting on her pillow. She screamed, but no one came. Outside, the wind howled again. And somewhere in that sound, if you listened closely, you could hear the faint shuffle of boots, marching endlessly, searching for someone who finally remembered him. Part 3. Echoes of the Forgotten. Sarah didn't sleep the rest of the night. At dawn, she sat on her porch, wrapped in a blanket, the folded flag clutched in her arms like a secret too heavy to carry. Her hands trembled. The early morning fog rolled in from the fields like silent ghosts, crawling low across the ground, swallowing everything in gray. She couldn't shake the voice from her head. Why did you leave me? She hadn't left anyone, she was sure, but something inside her stirred. A memory she couldn't place. Like déjà vu, but sharper, deeper. Later that morning, Sarah visited the local library, searching for answers. She needed to know if there really was a forgotten soldier buried under the old war monument. The librarian, an older woman with thick glasses and a voice like rustling paper, hesitated when Sarah asked. Then she leaned in, whispering like the words might wake something sleeping. There was one, a soldier who came home, but never really came back. His name? Unknown. His identity? Lost. He had walked off the train platform one day, after returning from war, still in uniform, and was never seen again. Weeks later, they found his body in the woods. No ID, no tags, only his uniform and a note clutched in his fist. I made it home, but no one waited for me. Sarah's blood turned cold. The librarian continued. No family ever claimed him. Locals just called him the Nameless One. Every year on Memorial Day, someone would place flowers on his grave until they stopped. Sarah drove straight to the cemetery. It was old, forgotten. The headstones were cracked and crooked, names eroded by rain and time. But she found it. The grave, marked only with a number, 246. A single rusted dog tag hung from a stake. She knelt beside it. The wind picked up suddenly. Leaves. Sarah looked around. No one was there. But the grave beneath her felt warm, like a heartbeat. Then, faintly, she heard boots again. Not on the gravel, not in the grass, but inside her mind, a presence. She wasn't just remembering. He was. Part 4. The uniform in the mirror. That night, Sarah returned home with a heaviness in her chest that words couldn't explain. She placed the folded flag on her mantle, directly beneath an old photo of her grandfather in uniform, a man she barely remembered. The house was quiet, unnaturally quiet. She locked the doors, turned on every light, yet the silence pressed against her like a damp cloth over her mouth, muffling her thoughts, slowing her breath. She stepped into the bathroom to wash her face and froze. In the mirror, just behind her, stood a man. Not a shadow, not a trick of the light. A man, dressed in a faded military uniform, face pale and hollow, dog tags swinging gently with no wind to move them. His eyes, oh God, his eyes, black as coal, rimmed with red veins, staring straight into her reflection. Sarah whipped around. No one. She blinked rapidly, her pulse crashing against her temples. When she looked back in the mirror, the figure was gone. But the mirror wasn't empty. There, smeared across the fogged glass, written in something dark and wet, were the words, "You forgot me." Her breath caught in her throat. That night, the house came alive with sound. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, echoed down her hallway. Whispers, low and pleading, rose from the floorboards. And at exactly 3 a.m., her door creaked open on its own. Not all the way, just enough for her to see him standing at the end of the hallway, motionless, his head tilted slightly, like he was listening for something, waiting. Sarah couldn't move, her body locked in place, heart racing like a trapped bird. She couldn't even scream. Then the soldier lifted his hand and pointed to the flag on her mantle. The same one she had found in her driveway. His lips moved. No sound came out, but she heard him, deep in her bones, like a memory that was never hers. Bring me home. Then he was gone, and so was the flag. Part 5. The final march. The next morning, Sarah awoke on the floor of her living room. The lights were off. The clock blinked 12 o'clock. Power had been cut. Her mouth was dry, her body sore, and for a long moment, she couldn't remember why she felt so afraid. Then she saw the front door, wide open. Outside, the early mist blanketed her yard, and in the center of it, where she'd found the flag just days before, was something new. Boot prints. Heavy, deliberate, leading nowhere. Military boot prints, leading away from her house and toward the forest at the edge of town. Clutched in her hand, without her knowing, was the old dog tag. Cold, tarnished, and cracked down the middle. She didn't remember picking it up, but she knew what she had to do. Wrapping herself in her jacket, Sarah followed the prints, into the mist, into the trees. Each step echoed with invisible footsteps beside her. She didn't look back. Birds were silent. The air felt thick, like walking underwater. Then, just beyond the final bend in the woods, she saw it. A shallow trench, half collapsed and choked with vines. And inside it, bones, human, carefully laid, wrapped in faded cloth. One hand reaching upward, still clutching the second half of the broken dog tag. She dropped to her knees, tears welling without warning. "This is where you fell," she whispered. "This is where they forgot you." She placed the flag over the remains, laid the tag beside its other half, and for the first time in days, the forest exhaled. The wind stirred the trees gently. Birdsong returned, and behind her, barely a breath in the breeze, came the sound of boots marching away, back into peace, back into memory. Sarah never saw the soldier again, but every year on Memorial Day, a single black feather appears on her windowsill. And every year, she leaves a folded flag beneath the old oak in the woods, where a nameless soldier was finally remembered, and finally brought home